All right. All right. So welcome to episode number 2 of The Invisible Hand on the Fireground. And tonight with me, I have Billy Larsen, my good buddy from 17 Truck. We worked together for a lot of years, or it seemed like a lot of years anyway. I know for 35 years. And Billy was started out in DC. First he was a volley, DC for a while. Got on the job in 83, went to, I believe, 305, correct me if I'm wrong, Billy, 305 for a couple
of 82. I got on the job in January of 82 and went to 305, yeah.
Then 17 truck, 60 engine in 83, and then 17 truck.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So, welcome, Billy. Thanks for being here. So, it's funny, we're doing the Invisible Hand, and we're going to try to make it a fire-related, but also a little spirituality. And we were going to do this Monday, and you said to me, I forgot my power cord, and I went and got another one from my neighbor, and I was about to do it, and you said it wasn't meant to be. And I was like, man, I want to get it done, and sure enough, I'm glad you did that, because the next day I go to work, and Jay Jonas puts out a newsletter, the Saga of Ladder 17 and 17-2, and there's chock full of stuff in here I want to talk about with you. So I'm glad that we didn't do this on Monday, and I'm glad we're doing it now. So, before we get into this, I was going to name this episode The Christmas Story, because you and I have a bunch of stories together, but I think this is a story within a story. So what I want to do is I want to talk about Harold Hoey. And, I grew up in that firehouse as a probie, and I remember seeing his picture and his front piece on the in the mantle and behind the glass. And it always hit me right here, right in the heart, his story. And I read this article, and I want to just read a little bit. And the way it starts out, I'm saying to myself, why did you read this yet, Billy? Did you read this article yet?
Yeah, I did read it. Yes, I've read it a couple of times, and just being a part of that firehouse and being a part of us, basically, we did a lot of things because of the things he started.
Yes.
And it hit close to home. It hit close to the heart, having never worked with the man, but living in the legacy of him was, one of the important things about 60 and 17. I mean, the legacy lived on.
Yeah, absolutely. And he got on in 68. So I'm figuring he probably got on with McDowell, and I'm sure Jack was there, and Mike Weldon, and Willie Cottrell, and Tommy Mahoney, Patty Mack, Jimmy Johnson. I know, not Johnson, but no, he got on. So anyway, in 68. So it starts out with a story about this guy, Al Bold.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember that story. They were getting a delivery of gas or gasoline, and something happened with the fumes, and then next thing there was an explosion. About 17 of these guys got hurt or whatever. There's a whole bunch of them got hurt. They come rolling out of the firehouse, and he was on the watch, and he got burnt pretty bad. And and so Jay Jonas talks all about Al Bold, and I'm like, why is he talking about Al Bold in a story about 17 Truck? But we'll get to that in a little bit. So anyway, so Al Bold, poor guy. I mean, Al, he worked in 143 Truck, got burnt very badly, and he wound up going to the burn center. And everyone did live, but it was quite a tragedy. So we get to Harry. Harry Hoey was appointed on September 14, 1968. He went to 60 Engine, and he was an aggressive firefighter. He got his first rescue in 1970 on June 1st. My birthday is June 2nd, so I was all of like 9 years old when this happened. Him and Mike Laffey, he worked with. Mike is another guy who's like the heart and soul of 17 Truck. And then after 4 years, he went to 17 Truck in 73. Now, this is the type of guy Harry was. Billy, you read this about, he was a math student at Hunter College. He used to tutor the kids in the neighborhood. And I could see that neighborhood, right? I'm wondering back then, I guess the projects were there, right? In 73?
Yeah, 73, the projects were there, yeah. As far as I'm concerned, yeah. Yep.
Right. So, like the kind, I could just see him. I could just picture him, we have a guy like him now up in 46 Engine. Jack Mara, right? Jack was my old 24 partner in 46 Engine. we have so many guys like that in the FDNY. I mean, it's just a special breed of guys, and Harry, I'm sure, was just right up there in that class, and it says here that if they pass their test, that he would give them ice cream, right? So this is what he does. And then, so when I got there, right, June was our month, right? We had pretty much three things besides St. Patty's Day, which is already done in March, which we won't talk about St. Patty's Day, but we'll talk about June. And it was very much impressed upon me that, June, you better keep your schedule open because, we got a lot going on. Right. We had the seniors dinner, right? And explain that the way it started. So the way it says what he says, it started with a lunch. They gave him chicken soup and bread. And then it evolved into a lunch of a turkey dinner with all the trimmings. And that's the part I remember when I got there in '86.
Right. Well, the chronology of it was always Medal Day was on a Wednesday.
Right.
Friday was the seniors, and Saturday was the mass.
It's a mass. Right. Now, did we have the mass even before Harry died?
You know what? I'm not 100% sure, but I think it was started after 74. If I remember, but that's why we used to call it Hell Week. It was Medal Day, Wednesday, Friday was the seniors luncheon, and Saturday was the mass. We used to roll right through. So,
right.
I know.
So Harry, so I guess that Harry started the seniors dinner, and that was a great day. I guess we moved out of the firehouse and we went next door to the projects into the senior citizen center. And I remember Thanksgiving on June, whatever, right after Medal Day, that Friday.
Right.
And we all came in and we all put on our aprons and we cooked. And the night before was a great night. It was just a great week. It was.
Yep.
You really felt like that firehouse is just so special. I mean, I think you just had to been part of it to really understand it, and the giving that was
right. That was one of the most impressive things ever, that it was a very community oriented, open door firehouse. From when we got there, it was just, that's the way it was. We walked into that, started by Harry and a couple other senior guys. And then it just evolved. And that's what we walked into. We walked into that being a very open door, open, community oriented firehouse. So, and that was one thing that made me very proud of being there. And most of us to this day, whether you admit it or not, have a soft spot in our heart for that neighborhood. Mott Haven I'll always have a soft spot in my heart for Mott Haven. Always.
And even the kids that came by the firehouse, that like guy like Macho and Miguel, and we had so many people that we took. Bobby the Beef was even
he was the first kid, one of the first kids. He was in there,
and Bobby still today is a big part of the FDNY. So even though he never wore the FDNY unit, he was a dispatch, he was fire patrol, and he was God. I could tell you stories about Bobby the Beef, and. So, so we had that special week in June, and then I just want to read a little bit more about Harry. On Christmas time, Harry wanted to give again. He and a group of firemen from the firehouse solicited donations from the merchants on 149th Street. Then they delivered the toys by Santa Claus via the Bucket of 17 truck to Lincoln Hospital. I mean, my God, he was, I get really choked up thinking about him. I would have loved to know him. And then we move on, and his first rescue was October 29th, 73, 2195. I think it was 420 Willis. What street would that be about? About 146 or 7 around there somewhere?
I'm trying to remember the numbers, but yeah, around there. Yep, just north.
Typical tenant.
Down to the left. Yep.
So, he was involved, him and Mike Laffey. He had the can. Laffey was the boss. And, fire in the top floor, 5th floor. He made his way in. It says the aerial, 17-2 had the aerial.
Yeah.
We had the tower ladder, right? They had the aerial. And the aerial couldn't reach, so he had to grab the person. went out into the hallway, passed him off, and Laffy, he made a grab too. So they got two people, and it goes on, and then he got a medal for that medal day on June 4th. His wife Doris was there. He's got three boys, Thomas, David, and Christopher. I'd love to reach out to them and meet them sometime. And then we get to the fateful day on June 12th, 1974. He was working in 17. After 2200, it was Bergen in 148. He had the OV. Him and a guy, Frank Duffy. I don't know. I knew Bill Duffy. I don't know Frank Duffy. Started their ascent into the bucket, to the roof, and there were reports of people trapped. And then that's when the tragedy happened. He got caught on the cornice and got thrown out of the bucket. And he succumbed to his injuries. Now, where the miraculous story comes in about Harry is that he went to the hospital. Now go back to Al Bold. Al Bold needed a skin graft, and Harry donated his skin and saved Al's life. And they say right in this article that was nothing short of a miracle. So, tonight's show definitely, is in the memory of Harry. I would have, it says here, yeah, the newspapers headlines called it a miracle. His funeral was in St. Joseph's Church out in Kings Park. I could just imagine what that scene was like. And, the pipe band, I didn't mention, was started also in 17 Truck, I think in 1962, if I'm correct. Was it in the basement?
The stories we were always told that they started in the basement. Patty Mack, Bill Duffy, they were there. Eddie McLaughlin, still playing, still marching, still playing as far as I know.
Yeah.
And, if you go back to the connection between 60 and 17, 17-2, and 294 and 143 in Queens, is that you also remember that one of our beloved lieutenants in the engine, Bobby Salati, came from that firehouse,
right,
and became a lieutenant in 60 engine.
Right.
He was loved by everybody, Lieutenant Salati,
Right.
So
there it is.
Just, another faithful connection. We got a great boss from there that worked with us for many, many years. So.
Right. So I feel personally, I remember when I got assigned there, some people told me that, that it was a hard luck house, because then the next year, the following year, they had a fire down on 100. It was almost a year to the date. No, it was October of
yeah, it was fall.
4. Yeah. 75 Willis Avenue, right down underneath the Willis Avenue Bridge. They had a commercial building, third alarm. And this is, has to do with power being off on the railroad. And inadvertently, someone put the power back on, and Johnny Williams and Russ Lindenball were electrocuted. That was, they succumbed to their injuries too. They were pulling down a 35-foot portable ladder. And, this is like, what I like to do on the show too sometimes is just talk about safety things too. And, I watch guys, because I'm in the street now, and I watch firefighters all the time, putting up portables, taking portables down. And the other day we had one, and I'm looking at the kid and I'm like, listen, do you see the power lines right over your head? And he didn't even see them, So I actually think of these, of Johnny Williams and Russ Lindenball, every time I see that, I think of them when I see a portable ladder going up, So, so we lost those two. Now, there was another firefighter that was lost too. Was it Neville Martin? Was his name?
Neville Martin. He was on vacation, and he was in the plane crash in the Virgin Islands.
Right.
And the story is that he went back in after he got out. He went back in to get people out, and I don't know if he was burnt or smoked or whatever, but that's the story that was always told to us,
So, it's just really kind of crazy, amongst all that death. I still believe though that that firehouse is blessed. For some reason, I think that those guys, their spirits somehow lived on in that firehouse and protect us. Because Billy, I don't remember a medal day went by that we weren't down representing the whole time I was there. I mean, and even years before I was there, we were always somebody was going
Mhm.
down a medal day from that. I mean, we rescued a lot of people. I mean,
We also, that both companies have got a lot of people out where we got unit citations for it too,
yeah,
where everybody did a great job. So rather than write one person up,
yeah,
been on dozens of those fires where, the chief would come up to us and say, wow, what a great job. We're going to write. No. Let's everybody work their butts off. We all worked our asses off. Just write the companies up. And we got lots of unit citations for that, and that's what it was. That was the beauty of that. There was no headhunting. It was
no.
all, it was all, it was all
A
about
lot
the
of times
companies.
things didn't even get written up.
No,
I remember,
absolutely.
I remember
Absolutely.
Maxwell one time. We had a fire. It was top floor. I was right with them. We popped the door, right, me and Twiggy, and the guy was right behind the door. We pulled him out, and the chief was like, he told Maxwell, write write it up, and he just laughed. He's like, it's like no,
Yeah.
no big deal. What was
Yeah, but
the one I wasn't in the firehouse then? The buttons they made up the Brook Avenue. What was that all
the
about?
rescue mission on Brook Avenue.
Right.
Yeah. God bless Ladder 17, the rescue. I was still at 60 at the time. 83 and 29 were first due. It was Brook right off of 138th Street.
Yeah.
And it was, not a whole lot of fire, but, 6 floors of smoke with a fully occupied tenement, and they were just, every time they went into a room to search, they pulled people out. There was people coming out everywhere. There were so many rescues made there. It was ridiculous. And then, they had that thing at Lincoln Hospital, and, Patty McGrail, Captain McGrail was the captain at the time. And I remember sitting right next to him, and he goes, Jesus Christ, Billy, you didn't think 60 was at the freaking fire at all, because, John Mitchell was creative, and they worked their butts off. But there was, between 83 and 29, 60 and 17, 41 engine was there, and 42 truck was there. Everybody made grabs that night. Everybody made grabs that night because there was a ton of people to come out of there.
Yeah, that was the one. I think Mitchell and Jaguar were in the NYF. There was a picture of them pulling kids out, and
yeah,
John Gentili and all those guys.
Yeah. Yep.
I don't know, I always felt the place was blessed. We just always seemed to always did the right thing.
Like when Joe Kelly first got there, we accused him of bringing a freaking shopping bag in with kids in it. Every time he turned around, I'd have the can in the irons. We pop the door, he'd come in, he'd pass us. Next thing you know, he'd come out with a baby in his arm. What do you got? You carry him in your freaking pocket, Lou, or what?
Yeah. I remember the one story. I don't know if you were at the fire. It was the day of the hockey game, and I was so pissed off that I wasn't there. But I think Dusty and Jaguar were inside with Kelly. But Joe was up in the office and listening to the police scanner.
Right.
And he heard a cop say that there was flames coming out the windows. And Joe heard it. He immediately jumped down the pole hole, turned the companies out. They raced down Alexander, I think, right by the 4-0. And he raced in there with Dusty, and they grabbed like 3 kids. And were you at that fire? Because I think you were in the paper carrying one of the kids. You and Kenny Francis.
Yeah, that was right by 138th Street. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. And Victor Harris.
Right. You were I remember you being in the paper. Yeah. And then Joe got a medal, obviously. So
right.
Just nonstop.
Mm-hmm.
Just like it never ended, So anyway, I was gonna I don't know which story you want to talk about first, but I was the Joe Kelly story, and then we were joking, right, Billy? We always joke about the years of the collapses,
Mm-hmm.
One thing I have to tell you, I'm not blowing smoke, but firefighters generally don't have this big vision. Mostly firefighters, they concentrate on their job. They got the OV or the roof or the irons, and they kind of take care of themselves. Like they force the door to go and do a search. You got the roof, they run up the aerial or take the bucket or take the adjoining building, and they do what they got to do and they give a report. But I always felt with you, and I'm giving you this as a really good compliment. You always had this sixth sense about you. Like you have a bigger vision. Like, I don't know what it was, man, but you more than once too. I can remember standing with you in Harlem and you saying to me something like, Sparky, you pulled me like that wall's gonna go. And then no sooner you said it, that whole wall fell down. And if we hadn't moved, we probably would have been underneath it, And you know, generally firefighters don't have that kind of vision. You know, usually that's like a chief's thing or maybe an officer, but you know, firefighters generally kind of, you know, so but that was the year to collapse. So I'll talk about the first one, right? We had the one on Cortland Avenue, right? I
Mhm.
remember. I don't know if my memory's a little vague now, but the first one we had, I think it was around Thanksgiving time, right? For some reason I
What,
remember.
I mean, in '90 with Jimmy Trainer, that one?
Yeah, it was at 90, right?
Yeah, but that was late October.
Late October, because I think
Late October. It was
41
chilly. It wasn't cold. It was chilly, but
chilly. So I remember. I think I had very. It was very rare for me to have the OV. Billy Welch had. You had the can maybe, and then Welch had the irons, and Pete Walpole had the roof, and Tugboat was driving.
yeah.
Remember, I remember the first fire. I remember getting in the bucket. I took Pete to the roof, and there was a bunch of HUD windows.
Hmm.
And you know, we banged them out. Went in. It was like I remember 41. It was like the one or two floors of fire, and they banged it out pretty good. You know, and it was just a typical vacant. You know, I mean, no big
Hmm.
deal. We were there for about an hour, and then we I guess we went back and ate, and then we came back. It was about an hour or two later, right? And it was the fire. I think it was now on the top floor, and so I was for some reason I was with you. Again, you grabbed me and you said, "Sparky, this don't feel right." You grabbed me, and 41 was in front of us, and they disappeared. The whole back of the
Hmm.
building collapsed, right? And then for some reason, we raced down, and I don't know. We found some kind of opening to get into the basement. Me, you, and Billy Welch, and
We went through the street grate.
the street grate. Yeah,
We went through the street grate.
right. And the place was just it was just a debris field, basically.
Hmm.
It was everything, floors were hanging on top of us. But I think back now, I was like, it was pretty kind of miraculous that we found him, you know?
Mm.
And I tell you, I quite honestly thought that we were going to recover a body. I don't know. I think, did we just know it was Jimmy that went down?
We didn't know. I didn't know. I didn't know who it was. I didn't know who it was. All I heard was the Mayday, and we just went. We just went. I went to the basement just because that's where all the debris was. You know, and I figured instead of going towards the back, I'd go through the front of the building. Maybe I get a shot to, get to where where the main body. There was fire down there, but where the collapse was, maybe we just get to it faster. I don't know. Again, it was instinct. It really was. There was really not a lot of thought process to it. It just the floor didn't feel right when we were up there. It just didn't
Yeah.
feel right. There was that one door frame we were looking at. We were going to pull something on that, and I just looked at it. It just didn't feel right. It just didn't look right. And that's when I grabbed it, and that's when it went.
But
And
Billy,
we sort of went to like a door frame, which is they tell you to go. You go to a strongest part or something like that. That's where we went, and then it was just boogieing. A lot of people don't remember that when we went there, we stopped. I don't know if you remember this. We stopped and we pulled Kevin Reardon out of the floor. He went through the floor. We pulled him out first before we got into the basement. And he was not trapped, but he went through the floor. He was holding
right.
on like
I
he was
forgot.
leaning on the side of a pool.
I
You
forgot
remember that?
about that. Yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah.
We yanked him up and said, "Well, we can't stop now." And then we went downstairs. I couldn't tell you what floor he was on, but he was there, and we just yanked him out and went on our way to the basement. So,
But see, Billy, what you take it for granted, but I've been on the job now 35 years. Not many guys have that kind of instinct. I mean, when you grab me, I let me tell you something. I would say you guys in 17 saved my life more than once. Whether, be a brownstone fire or a vacant, but more than once, you personally probably saved my life at least twice, without a doubt. And you say it's instinct, but we don't know what it is. You know,
no, I don't know what it is.
it could be divine intervention or whatever it was, but what I thought in all these years later, right? It's 30 some odd years later now, that we went to the right exact spot where he was, and we started just pulling out the lath and the plastic, and the beams, and then we heard him down there. And I remember thinking, I saw him curled up like a ball, and I'm thinking to myself, like, he's dead, and I think it was Billy that said, hey brother, something, we're gonna come to get you, and then when we get you out, we're gonna get you a beer. And he says, I don't drink.
Yeah.
And that's when we knew he was kind of okay,
Mm.
And then then we proceeded to dig him out, and then it was kind of funny. We told the story about tugboat and the chief's idea about getting rescue in there and how that wasn't going to happen.
Right. Well, not at that point in time, no, because we had done 90% of the work. And I think the job was in all hands. I don't even know if it was in all hands. It might
Right.
have been a 2 and 2.
Yeah.
Because I don't think rescue was on scene when
No.
it happened.
No.
So 41, 41 was the squad back then, but they were first due, so they were acting as the engine company.
Right.
And I think we were probably using 2 and 2. I don't think, back then, nothing, the old time chiefs, even though we had a covering chief, the old time chiefs, they would work us to death. They never banged any all hands because, the all hands and the deputy had to come and he had to explain what was going on,
Right. Exactly.
So how many times have we, 2 and 2 and you're pulling ceilings or humping hose till your arms fall off because, they don't want the deputy coming. But, that was just the 14th Battalion. That was just the whole area was like that. It was just, you did it, you worked,
Yeah. So I remember putting a backboard on him. I remember I had a knife in my pocket. I cut his mask. We put him on the backboard. We pulled him out, and then we passed him up to rescue. And then
right, because we were down there, we weren't going to come back out.
right.
Yeah.
And then that was that. So, but I just think the whole thing is just kind of a bit of a miracle that we found him the way we did, and that he survived.
Right. You know what? But the one thing I always remember is after we got out, we were laying them against the rig out in front, trying to set, and then having the senior guys like Trump come up and look at you square in the eye and goes, "Good job down there." That's praise from Caesar. When you got the attaboy from the senior man,
Yeah.
that was always right with the world. When the senior man said good job, and he means it, because a lot of those old timers did not, the platitudes were not always there,
Right.
being called all sorts of things back then, with love and affection, but also with, they told you exactly how it was going to be and what it was like. But, for Frankie to say, good job down there, guys, and that wasn't unusual. And that was the beginning of a year, if not a little more than a year, of the collapses. We were, most people can do 20 years in the fire department and never be in a collapse.
Right.
The same guys in 17 truck, we were in 4 or 5 collapses in a year, back to back, months apart.
I thought it was normal.
Yeah, we just, working in that kind of neighborhood, that's, what it is. But, we still had a ton of vacants up there. We had a bunch of occupiers that were shit buildings. So, that's just what it was.
Yeah.
I'm gonna digress a little bit. I was watching that 8th Alarm the other day in Jackson Heights.
Yeah.
And it was somebody, it was on a video. I don't know if it was the news or something like that, but it couldn't have been the news. I don't know how I got it. It might have been a YouTube video or something like that. And I'm watching, and I seen these tower ladders going up. I'm like, shove the thing in the window, get it close. They're all back and stuff. So there must have been an old time chief there that's going, hey guys, get that thing closer to the building, shoot it up into the ceiling to break the ceiling off so we can get the water into the cockloft, which was second nature for us. We put the tower, if it would fit, we put it right into the room if we had to, So
I got 3 pictures right here of 3 towel ladder jobs with 17 truck. I should show it to you if I can show it to you. If you look up on
the one that you and Gilly are in Dawson, that one, that's the one there with you and Gilly and Dawson.
Right. Me and Eddie Cruz
in Interville, one of those.
Yeah, and the other one's in Wales in 152 with Jimmy Ferry. But it's so funny because right now with the remote tactical, I wanted to do towel ladders, and we're doing towel ladders now, and that's exactly what I said. And I was joking with one of the guys. I said, even though I only spent 5 years in a towel ladder, I said I probably have more time in a bucket. I get a pilot's license, and we have all these experts now, But man, being with McDowell, there's the other picture over here. I don't know if you can see it, but me and McDowell are in Harlem at that 5th Alarm. Talk about big Tom, right?
Yeah.
But you know what? He always made me drive.
Right, because he liked to squirt. He made everybody drive because he liked to squirt the water. That was just his thing. He was never in an engine. He liked to squirt the water. So that was. I remember a time. It was a daytime fire. We had like half a block burning. Mitchell was the boss. It was a day like today. It was colder out. It was springtime. It was a beautiful, crystal clear day. And me and the big man, Gilly and I were up in the bucket. And we're going around. You know, we were both like country boys and stuff like that. And I look and I nudge him. Now the whole block is burning. You know, half the Bronx is burning. Just multiples all over the place. I look up and there's two hawks circling in the thermals above us, right?
Right.
So we stop, we're looking up in the sky. We're trying to figure out. Gilly said, I think it's a red-tailed hawk. I don't know. I think this, that, and the other. And Mitchell's called us on the radio. You freaking farmers up there, stop looking at the pigeons and put the fire out and stuff like that. But that's just the vibe that we got. I mean, who cares about it? The whole block is burning. Who cares? You know, we saw these hawks and they were absolutely beautiful. And Gilligan and I are up there. We're looking at the hawks, you know, and I don't know.
You know, I had that job. We had it underneath the Triborough, the newspaper print. Remember the warehouse?
Mm-hmm.
Get it once in a while. There was no hydrants down there, so it was always a second alarm for rubbish fire.
Right.
Well, we pulled up this one time because remember 29 was a tower ladder, right? So we had two of us, right? And this thing it had to be 1,000 feet long, and it was fully involved. So we have to protect the bridge now. So we bring the tower ladder right under the bridge. It was so hot they had to put an engine to put the line on the rig because we melted every light on the rig. We melted everything, but we had to protect the bridge.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm in a bucket. I forget who, I don't know if you were there, but probably McDowell. But Joe Kelly was in a bucket, which was very rare. We never had an officer in a bucket, but I think Kelly in a bucket. So I take the bucket up and, you know, we start putting water on the on the building, right? So from underneath the bridge, there was pigeons and they were on fire. So Kelly goes, he goes, look, there's flaming pigeons. I never forgot that, the flaming pigeons. But we actually melted the rig.
You want to just digress a little bit and talk about fate and just that something was meant to be. I was there today. Jack Ryan and I were standing in front of 17 again with the doors open because the nice weather, the door was always open. Again, the community-oriented firehouse, the door was always open, saying hello to the people walking by and so on and so forth. And all of a sudden, this brown Plymouth Scamp pulls up, and I see this officer, bald head, cranky, nasty-looking face on, get out, go into his trunk, get his gear, walk by, basically just grunts at us and walks upstairs. And I look at Jack. You know, Jack's been around the block. You know, he was at least over 25 years at the time, 20 years at the time. I said, "Oh Jesus, we're getting him." I said, "Hopefully he's just covering." He said, "He looks like a cranky old guy." And Jack turned to me and he said, "That's one of the nicest men on the job. Let me explain." And the rest was history. And he was, you know, we became great friends, skiing partners, all sorts of stuff. Love Joe Kelly. But the fact what happened with 90 engine, 41 truck, he gets sent down to 17, and it turns out it was great for him, great for us. So there's that, you know, there's that hand of fate for us was wonderful. And he walked in, he was not happy. And, you know, it turned out to be a great career move for him, I think.
And he loves,
you know, for us, I'm being selfish because I love working with him.
Yeah.
But, you know.
I remember, you know, it's funny, as we speak, and Spuds is texting me, telling me, he goes, there's 6 deputy chiefs. Okay. We're both on a deputies list. You know, Billy, I'm going to tell you something very sincerely, man. And I'll go for Frank too. We are who we are today because of you and the guys at 17. That first 5 years that I was there molded me and made, like, guys look at me today like, you know, okay, you're somebody, you know, with guy with experience and that. But I'm humbled because I say, you don't know who I worked with. Like, when I mentioned Billy Larsen, I'm like, you don't know the Billy I know. You know what I mean? The Gilligan, the McDowell, the Pete Lazinskis, the Jimmy Ferry, the Mike Steele, the Jimmy Johnson. I mean, these guys were like all-stars. I mean, just all-star firemen, you know, officers, like the officers that I remember getting there. Every officer had over 25, 30 years. They all had gray hair. The chiefs were the same age as could be my grandfather. You know what I mean? The experience was just off the charts in that place. And it showed. I mean, You never
Mhm.
worried like
Absolutely.
you're never worried about anything. Like I was a scared kid going to 17 truck, man. And like I had no fear. I just look at a guy like Maxwell or Joe Kelly. I remember Joe Kelly as a probie. He called me up to the office. I'm like, oh Christ, man. What he sat me down and he's like, when I say this, I mean this. And when I want the can, and I was just like, and I'm thinking like, I'm saying to myself, they're really expecting me to go into a fire.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Like this is real. Like it's like so anyway. Um it's just an
Well,
amazing.
you go back to Spuds, go back to Chief Simpson. I was working the day he came into the firehouse. He
Yeah.
had the can of 17. I had the irons. Vernon had the roof, God rest his soul.
Yeah.
And Ray Weldon had the OV. And Dennis Callipy was the boss.
Right.
So we'll go up on Walton or Girard, up north of 149th Street.
Yeah.
Huge buildings.
Yankee Stadium.
We had to be second due because we were a floor above. Good job, one apartment going, but those are big apartments.
Yeah.
It's out a couple of windows, banking down. Off we go. We go up, and I think Frank had his mask. Nobody else had their mask because that's just the way it was.
Right.
We go up there. We get to the floor above, pop the door. We get in, bump, bump, bump. A little bit of extension. Line comes in. Routine, occupied building, routine, but snotty, nasty.
Yeah.
So now we're all laying in the hallway. We'll take it up, waiting for the final wash down and the chief to come through and take a look and see if we're going to take up or not. And Calpy's in with the chief with his light, and we're all sitting in the hallway. So Ray takes out a pack of cigarettes, gives me one. I have one. We're sitting there having it. And Frank is just looking at us like, Vernon's laughing, that giggle laugh, like, you guys are nuts, So Ray and I, filthy, filthy, dirty, snots, all that stuff, and just we're sitting there. We're having a cigarette in the hallway. So
Right.
Calipy comes out and says, all right, fellas, we're going to take up. We're good. This and the other thing. So we're not even off the floor yet. We're just laying on the floor. And Frank's like standing there with the can. So Calipy walks up and says, oh, Frank, how do you like the fire department after your first fire? And he like stiffens up that attention. He goes, not very much, sir. And you ask Calipy, he'll tell it the same exact way. And that will go down to the day we die. Not very much, sir. His first fire, he was in the firehouse. I don't know if he was in the firehouse an hour before we got that, 40 minutes. It was a short amount of time, and he rolled out the door and we're going unoccupied, and not very much, sir. And look at him now. Well, now he's fishing for striped bass in the river, but that's good,
Well, he's running the Marine Division.
Yeah, well, that's a wonderful thing.
I'm gonna save his story for another time because I'm gonna bring him on because Tony Alvis saved our life one night, and I'm gonna save that for another time. I'm saving the Christian story, and I want to get you. Billy is funny though. I heard I've heard your story so many times. I used to laugh. I'd say, okay, I know I've heard this one about 100 times, but you tell the best stories. But you got to tell the McCrudden story.
But there's a million of them.
Story.
Which McCrudden story? Which one? There's a million of them.
With the helmet.
What do you mean? Now I'm confused.
The helmet.
What is that?
The helmet. The helmet. How are we gonna put this one out?
Oh, is that the one? That's the one, the factory over in. Well, yeah. Well, there's so many McCrudden stories. I thought you would tell me the story. You punched me in the mouth and then drove off. That's another McCrudden story. But anyway, most battalion chiefs don't punch you in the mouth and laugh at you and then and drive away. But anyway, there was, Owen, we loved him, but he was one of the prime examples of why he never called for an additional engine or truck, or why he would call an all hands.
Right.
2 and 2, the rest fast, because if you hit the all hands, then the deputy's going to come,
right.
And that was always, because he was Owen. Owen was Owen. That was just the way it was.
Wait, before you go further, I got to describe Owen. Owen is 6'3". He was a marathoner, and he was just a very laid back guy. Just like,
Quirky, laid back, redhead, white Irish skin.
Yeah.
Redhead, curly hair.
Right.
But he was good to the men. Was always good to the men.
Yeah.
You know, he would work us to death, but he was good to the men. And well, this story that you want to tell me about, want me to talk about, is we go to the factories. We go over on behind Howie's, the junkyard. We go over there,
Right.
and Canal Place, whatever it is. It's a Saturday morning.
Right.
All right. So we roll up. It's had snowed like a bastard all weekend. There's about a foot of snow on the ground or whatever. There's piles of snow everywhere. We go up. We go for smoke in the building. Right. I think it came in as a class 3 or something like that, which we never get over there. But we go up there and stuff like that. Guy leads us upstairs. We go into this huge loft factory building. And there's all sorts of pots boiling there, all sorts of crap and this, that, and everything. And this one thing is on fire. So we tried a couple of extinguishers. We tried this, we tried that. And we shoveled snow. We had a bunch of jobs. I guess I was working that day. It was a day shift. I worked the night before. It was a horrible night. We were freezing. It was just one of those shit shows, you know?
Right.
And I'm like, Jesus Christ, we're just going to be here forever. We're going to wait for hazmat to come from Queens in a freaking snowstorm. You know, that's going to take hours. We're going to be taking. So that's when he says, well, how are we going to put this thing out? We're looking around. It was good. Frankie Trump was with me. We're looking around. So he's venting windows and stuff like that. So we walk over and I'm like, I don't know how to put this freaking thing out. I look out the window and it was those old metal windows with the wired glass in them, and they just creaked out a little bit.
Yeah.
And you could open them up because we were on like the 4th floor of this building and stuff like that. So I look over the backside where the railroad track, Park Avenue and stuff there. I look over and there's just piles of snow. That's it.
Right.
I said, I know. I said, Frankie, I got an idea. We went over, we put it through this thing, we picked it up with a hook, and we walked out, we dumped it out the window. Take up. It goes into the pile of snowbank. Big cloud of steam comes up. No one comes over and goes, what the hell is this, Chief? It's all taken care of. All right. And that's what we did. We took up. that was it.
Oh,
that was absolutely it. Frankie and I sort of looked at each other, and away we went. We took up.
What's the one story where you said with the? I remember you used to tell a story with the helmet got pulled down over your head. It was you or Gilligan? Some collapse or something. Your helmet took the helmet.
that was on Willis Avenue. That was on Willis Avenue.
Yeah.
But I don't remember with Owen though, because the whole back of the freaking building came down, and the chimney came down again.
Right.
And took us out, dropped me to my knees.
Right.
And my helmet the old helmet was down around my freaking below my ears, you know.
Right. But it's just another miraculous.
Right. We could have been dead on that one too, but we didn't, you know. And we took up, and you know that was it. We put an X on the building, and away we went. But
so before we get to your story, I want to talk about the other collapse now. It was Christmas Eve, and I really get chills when I think of the story, and I wonder sometimes if I'm remembering correctly. I know we've talked about this so many times. I remember pretty much everyone that was working, but I think that honestly that guy that showed up that night might not have been from this earth. I'm probably exaggerating, but
you and I have talked about this. I've talked about this from a lot of people over the years afterwards. And I said it that next morning. I said, I think more people would have been dead if this kid wasn't here.
Yes. And we'll set the stage.
It was Christmas Eve.
And it goes back to Harold Hoey. And I'm going to tell you how we're going to tie this into Harry Hoey.
All right.
And I think you were instrumental in this because if I remember this correctly, a week before we had a job in the projects. It was not much of a fire. It was the low rises on Morris.
We were 300 East 143.
Right. It was maybe a low rise. I'm not sure.
It was the low rise. It was a 7-story tucked in the middle of the two on the north side of 143rd Street between 3rd and Mars.
Right. And I think I had the can. Maybe you had the irons. I forget. You know, maybe 1 or 2 rooms. I think it was a Christmas tree. I remember the woman didn't water the tree, and then I think the tree. I remember her being burned, and she lost everything. And I think it was you or John Raw, or I forget, but you said, we're going to make Christmas for this family.
It was John Raw and I both.
Right.
Yep.
And we took up a collection, and then it got infectious. Like we all got involved. We bought them diapers and clothes and gifts.
That night, getting back to this kid, that kid walks through the door on Christmas Eve. Now I got the ton of stuff I'm in the kitchen. He walks into the kitchen. I looked at him, and it was a young man of color. He was from Lower Manhattan somewhere. I don't know where he was
65 engine.
from.
He was from 65.
And
Yeah.
and he's looking at me, and I said, "Oh man, welcome." Just that, just put your stuff down. Don't worry about anything. We'll walk everything through it. I said, "The truck is there. Here's the can, so on and so forth." I said, "We're gonna have a good night tonight." And I said, "It's Christmas Eve. It really sucks that you get detailed on Christmas Eve." And he looked at me. He says, "Well, it's not all that bad. My wife and I bought one of those little houses up by 82 and 31.
Mm-hmm.
Those little low rises that they built up there, those single family houses
Yeah.
up off there." He said, I said, "Listen, you're going to go straight home." I said, "We'll get you out of here early in the morning."
Right.
I said, "You'll be out of here. You'll be home for your kids to open up the gifts. We'll make sure that you're out of here, like that."
Right.
He said, "Oh, all right." I says, "Plus the fact is we got a nice meal going on." He says, "We're going to go to Mass." He goes, "What do you mean?" He says, "We're going to go to 73 and 42. It's a firehouse around the corner. We always have Christmas Eve Mass there. It's usually 11:15, something like that, depending on how busy we are. We'll go, we'll have Mass. Father Judge, God rest his soul, will say Mass. It'll be a great night. I have a great meal. I had like a standing rib roast, and we had shrimp. We had all sorts of stuff. We had a nice spread. All right." I said, "Hopefully we'll get a chance to eat it, at a halfway decent hour."
Right.
So we get them all set up and stuff like that. Then John came in. He says, "Billy, this is what we want to do." I said, "All right." So that's when we split up. John went up to the hub to get toys and stuff for that family.
Right.
And the truck went out. We went to get food, and we went to Western Beef. We got a whole bunch of food for them. As we were shopping, I said, "She's got a toddler still in diapers. Let's get diapers. That's the most expensive, we all had kids our own, diapers are one of the most expensive things." So we got diapers, we got all sorts of stuff. We come back. John comes back with some, 99-cent wrapping paper. Remember, we started wrapping some of the gifts.
But
I'm
going to stop you once.
Jump in.
I'm going to tell you what was happening on my end. I was so pissed off that I was not working in 17 that night, but we couldn't let him drive the battalion. We had an acting battalion chief, the guy from 82 engine, I forget his name, Italian name. And I'm driving a battalion on overtime. And I remember, I was like, I was at the fire, I wanted to be there for the ceremony, but he wanted to go to 82 and 31 to have, say hello,
Right.
And this kid, what I distinctly remember about him is that his gear didn't have a scratch of dirt on it. It was as clean as if it came out of a box. It was brand new. It was like he stopped at the supply store on Livingston Street and bought fire equipment and showed up at our firehouse.
Yeah, but he wasn't a probie though. He was off probation.
I know, but his stuff was as clean as a whistle.
Yeah.
That's what I remember. And I remember because Keeling was in the engine, and it was Ho Daddy and Finer, and I could have worked in the engine, but I was like, or I could have Keeling, but I drove the battalion. And then I remember taking off. Now you're doing your thing, 60s doing their thing, wrapping gifts, and I'm sitting up in 82 and 31, and I'm not happy. Now this kid is in the truck. Eddie McCallan had the irons. You had the OV. Norman had the roof, and was Tugboat.
Frankie Chum was driving, and Steve Cook was the boss.
Chum was driving, yeah. And John Roll was driving the engine. Right. So we go to 82 and 31. We had to go to Mass. I remember we were going to go to Mass at 73 and 42, like we did every year. So at some point, the captain, he said, "All right, let's go. We're going to go to Mass or whatever. We got to get back to the firehouse." And I remember coming down Brook Avenue, and you were at a water leak.
We had 400 Brook. We had 400 Brook.
We had 400 Brook.
We had 400 Brook for water leak, which was, the usual bullshit.
Right. And then I remember turning the corner and I remember saying something stupid on the radio to you, breaking your chops. But I was I was kind of annoyed. I really wanted to be in 17. I always wanted to be in 17, And I remember turning the corner, and I see down at the end of the block, this lady's doing jumping jacks. Like she's frantically waving us like crazy, And I think I got on the radio. I said, "Billy, you know what about that water leak?" I said,
this is exactly what you said, because I remember it. You said, "Farmer, go 10-8. We got a job in Wilson 143.
Yeah.
That's what you said.
Yep.
So I yelled to Cook. I said, "We got a job on the corner. The battalion's pulling up on a job on the corner. It hasn't even come out yet." He goes, "We're done. We're up."
Yeah.
We all come boogieing down the stairs. Frankie was still in the street. He heard it on the handy talkie too. He said, "We got a job around the corner."
Yeah.
We boogied around. Now we're coming down. For some reason, we went the right way. When we went to the orderly, we went the right way in traffic because we weren't rushing. We're coming the wrong way down. We're coming the right way down 143rd
Yeah.
Street.
Right.
And we're looking, and I'm the OB. I'm hanging out with the rig because it was the open rig. I'm looking, I'm like, all right, fellas, we got a good job here. And the kid from down, in Manhattan goes, oh, do you see some smoke? I said, no, I see about 3 floors of fire in the rear.
Billy,
He just like, what?
Billy,
And he just went, what?
I was the first one when I got to the corner 143 in Willis. I looked left when I saw the lady. She's pointing. The fire was blowtorching out onto Willis Avenue, about 40 feet. And all I remember is John Raw coming around the corner on 2 wheels.
Yeah.
And then he took the hydrant. There was a hydrant right there. And then things were a little blurry. Then you showed up, and then now you're part of the story.
Well, we came up, and I think Bobby Norman took the bucket to the roof. Frankie always, when he took the bucket to the roof, like Frankie and Pete, it's not protocol, but when he had a good chauffeur, the chauffeur would work the front of the building. I went to the back of the building. I went up the fire escape. And I started doing search. I started bailing in the back windows, And John Roy used to tease me. I was getting on the radio, said, need a line on 2, need a line on 3, need a line on 4, because fires are roaring up on pretty much every floor that we had. And fires started roaring up there. So now I'm doing a search on the top floor because I don't know if it was partially occupied, squatters, whatever it was.
The first floor was occupied. It was a bodega.
Right, it was a bodega, yeah. But I don't know above that there was people in there, but I don't know, was it technically?
Yeah, the squatters, yeah.
But what I remember, now Bobby got the roof and he says, it's getting nasty up here and so on and so forth. So he dropped down. He came down, I think the back fire escape. He came down, he dropped down, he went down below me. I was still waiting for a line to come up, which was going to pull. Unbeknownst to me, the apartments on the other side, because they were railroad, they were front and back.
Yep.
Chris Blackwell, rest his soul, he was Rescue 3 got there. He was in the other apartments doing the same thing. He was Rescue OV, I guess.
Right.
All of a sudden, it starts lighting up.
Yeah.
And I'm doing the farmer shuffle trying to get to the front windows. And I knew Frankie was going to be there. I said, Frankie, I'm coming to the window. And I heard the tower, gear up, rev up, and he was coming. And literally, luckily for us, the gate was flapping, I threw my tools, threw the gate open, and I dove into the bucket.
Right.
I started swinging away, and Chris Blackwell was going, Billy, wait. I swung back over. I picked him up. He did the same thing, fire rolling over his head now.
Yeah.
We bail out, all right? We swing away. He goes, all right, take me to the street. I says, Chris, you're going to have to hang with me because we're getting water. We're going to knock the snot out of this. And we got water, and we started hitting it with the towel ladder.
Let me tell you what happened while that was happening.
Right.
So I'm the 8. I've never driven a battalion for. I had no idea what I was doing. So me and that captain, the deputy shows up. I'm on the floor above, and 41's up there. And I remember the captain saying to the Chris Levy, and I forget who was backing him up. He says, all right, there was 2 railroad flats. He says, Chris, hit it over here. So he's hitting it over there. The whole back of the building was going. So he's trying to hit it on the left side, hit it on the right side, left side, right side. And then at some point, I remember going downstairs, and 60 made an incredible push, man. They were like now in the back of the store. It was Johnson, Keeling, Feiner, myself, Eddie McCowan, Cook. Now the kid that was detailed was by the front of the building,
right,
out in the street. And Eddie told me, Spaghetti told me that he just had the whole time carrying the can and the hook. He never moved. And then he's at the front door now, right? And I could remember this distinctly, and I know I remember this correctly. He starts screaming. He's screaming his head off like the world was ending. And I remember Finer saying to Ho Daddy, he said, Jimmy, let's take the nozzle and go up front and see what's going on. 7 of us walked up to the front of the building. And I think no sooner that we left that spot in the back of the store, that whole back of the building fell down.
Mm-hmm.
And I always think that, like, supposing that I had the can that night, you know what I
Mhm.
mean? I would have been back. No one would have been screaming.
Right.
It would have been 7 of us underneath this
Right. You would have the whole engine company and half of the truck company, you know, in the class.
in the collapse.
Yep.
And then I remember the collapse came down. Chris Levy from 41 was hanging upside down. Keeling and Finer grabbed him and walked him out. And then I don't remember what happened after that, but I think
We just whacked it with towel ladders after that.
that was it. Yeah. Then went to an
We
outside.
just whacked it with towel ladders. You know, it became, you know, searches, you know, the primaries were basically negative, because we ran through those railroad flats.
Yeah.
The roof was open already. I think Bobby probably either cut the roof or he got the, you know, the bulkhead was open. That was easy. So he was down pulling ceilings and stuff like that. So, you know, there was really nothing. It was an inside rubbish fire, basically,
Yeah.
you know, after that. And, you know, Levy was off to the hospital. Everybody else was, you know, banged up a little bit, but that was it, you know. And again, that was a Christmas Eve miracle.
That was
really
a miracle. That was a miracle.
And that kid, if you look at it any other way, if we had a detail from any other local companies or from a Harlem company
We'll all be
or a
dead.
Brooklyn company or something like that, that probably wouldn't have happened. You would have had more injuries. You might have had a fatality, a firefighter fatality because of that. Because of him, he was sent there for that reason. I'm a firm believer in that.
No, me and you
I
both.
told
We
you the
said
other
that.
night when we were trying to do this. Everything happens for a reason.
Yeah.
Everything happens for a reason.
Yeah.
And that's why.
I think
Without
Harry-
him, the
Yeah.
consequences would have been absolutely different.
I think Harry, Johnny, and Russell, I think they sent them there that night.
Well, you know, I believe in people looking out for, I mean, I could talk to you about stories, that's personal stories from now until the sun comes up. That's why I'm a firm believer. Jean, my wife Jean, she believes in that also. And for not just because she believes, because things have happened
Yeah.
that can't be explained any other way than that, you know? So people might look at it and say, yeah, poo-poo it, stuff like that. You know, my youngest son, Caleb, he thinks I'm crazy. You know, he doesn't believe in any of that stuff. I do.
There's part of me that doesn't want to know if he really exists. I think sometimes I thought he was an angel. I thought that maybe he didn't really exist that night. He just, God sent him there. Because I wonder if he was really a fireman. His gear was brand new.
Right.
It was not a scratch on it.
But all right, let's go back. Let's go back in chronology for that night. Okay.
Yeah.
We go shopping.
Yep.
We went and delivered the packages to the woman that's family, who was a postal worker, who was also a vet from Desert Storm #1.
Right.
If you remember that. She was a vet. I think she was an Army vet.
Right.
Who went to Desert Storm #1. Her mom watched her kids.
Right.
She had that baby after she got back. We walked into that apartment. The apartment was a project. It was 300 East 143. And I think it was on the 3rd floor.
Yep. We walked up.
And that building still had soot on the walls and stuff like that.
Yep.
They were all sleeping on a mattress on the floor. There wasn't an ounce of furniture in the place.
Yep.
We walked in with a small Christmas tree.
Yep.
And all those gifts.
Yep.
And she went hysterical crying because there was diapers. The baby had a dish towel wrapped around her as a diaper. She started crying for that. So if you look at, if there is somebody, if there is a higher power, if there is somebody that's controlling all of this, that was that. Okay.
Yeah.
Then after that, I don't know if we ate first or whatever. After that, we go to 73 and 42. And again, God rest his soul. Father Judge is saying the mass.
Right.
He did something very controversial that year. He gave everybody at the mass general absolution.
Yes. And you're a Protestant, by the way.
He said, I am going to get in big trouble for this, but every time you get on this rig, you have no idea what's going to happen.
Yes.
He always used to say that.
Yep. Yep.
So then those things happened.
Yeah.
And then the collapse happened with this detail, who never entered the fire building, but he was there.
Never.
So you can believe whatever you want. Fate, this, that, the other thing, whatever you want to believe. That's right. And never saw the man again.
Never saw him again.
Never saw the man again. In the beginning of the night, he told me, he goes, wow, you guys, because he's hanging around me, he's hovering around me in the kitchen. And he's saying to me, I love this place. Oh my God, this place, I'm going to put my paper. Hey, listen, you can ride a bicycle to work. You're right around the corner.
Yeah.
20 blocks, you're going to be to this firehouse. Because, us, the firehouses are on top of each other. So you're going to be right around the corner, right?
Yep.
At 7 o'clock, that was at 7 o'clock at night.
Yep.
At 7 o'clock in the morning, he goes, you guys are effing nuts. I am never walking back into this firehouse again. This place is insane. This whole neighborhood is insane. And he never came back. But I've never seen him before. With all the stuff that we went to everything. We went to everything. Never saw the man again. Never saw the man again at a medal day, at a memorial service, line of duty funerals, anything fire department wise where there's 1,000 guys out, you never saw him again.
Not a peep.
And
I want to keep it that way. I want to believe that he was an angel. I really do. I know.
You know what? You can believe, anybody can believe what they want to believe, but I always look at the timeline of things that happened.
Yeah.
And, and then he was there and all the good we did up to that point that night. All right. Because that actually was Christmas Day because it was after midnight when that fire happened.
Yes.
All right. And it wasn't like 3 o'clock in the morning. I think it was about 1-ish.
Yeah.
Because I don't think we didn't eat yet. I don't know if we ate or not, but
no, we're coming back from 82 and 30. Yeah, it was around midnight-ish, But because I think 73, didn't they do the mass at midnight? Was it midnight mass?
Mass was like 11:30,
11:30, yeah.
So it was after the mass. So it was around midnight, after midnight, something like that. So
I tell you, I really think God bless that firehouse. But anyway, tonight's really about you. I want to hear your story. Now I want to tell a quick Eddie Brown story because we're still on 146th Street now in Cortlandt Avenue. And I remember one night we had a job. I was in the engine, ERS box by ourselves. And wound up being a job in the fish store, right? So Eddie Brown is the chief. Remember Eddie with the coat open, the big white t-shirt, the belly hanging out? So he's the cops, I don't know how the cops got involved, but they were up on a fire escape, and the fire's ripping out of this fish store, and now they're above. And I remember, gotta watch my language, but I remember someone said, hey, chief, the cops are in trouble. They're in a fire escape. And he said in no uncertain terms, he said, bleep them. Very matter of factly, just like F them. That was it. Nothing else was said, So anyway, but we had a lot of work on that street just for a small block, 146 Colin and College.
Weird block, weird, scary, very atypical, not atypical, just not. It had a little bit of everything in that corner.
We had a private dwelling on that block.
We had a couple of private dwellings. Right.
Then we had the convents on that block, and then around the corner we had the church.
There was a church. Then there was a building that was like the home for wayward mothers, young girls that had babies were living in there, which was a halfway decent building. There was a lot of different stuff in that building. I think that was the same block that had that building in it that had party balcony, didn't have a fire escape front or rear, but had a party balcony in the rear, and it had small apartments on both sides, big old wooden hallways.
Yes.
There was a door like a window. It was like a window type.
I remember that.
The fire escape in the back.
Yeah. Now I'll tell you, Mike Steele's his first last night in 60 Engine, or was a day tour, because I remember
when he went up to 46 truck.
Right, it was Steve Pitts and Chuck Horak showed up at the door in their uniform, and we're going out the door, and Steve Pitts and Chuck. So I said I had the can, and I said we're going to work. I said get on the rig, and Steve Pitts stood there like a statue, and Chuck jumped on the rig, and I gave him the can, but it was Mike Steele's last fire in 60 Engine. But you had a job on, I think maybe it was 148 between Cortland and was a Morris, I guess. Tell us that story where you had your little spiritual story.
All right, that story was, and there's a story before that. It was And I remember this distinctively. It was 1994 because I was just back to work after my father passed away. All right. Now, my dad was a very kind, gentle man. He was, I'll tell you another story about that too. But he was, he was a volley for like 50 years and stuff like that. But, it's different. It's different. But so I was off for like a week and a half, 2 weeks with mutuals and stuff like that. And, brought my dad back up from Florida, buried him in a family cemetery out on Long Island, stuff like that. It was a great thing. Had a big thing at the Valley Firehouse. It was all good. So like a day or two after all of that was done, everybody had gone home. My mom had gone back home and stuff like that. My youngest son, Caleb, was still a toddler. He was still taking naps and stuff like that. Gene was at work, and my oldest guy was at school. And, my neighbors thought I was crazy anyway, but I would put him down for a nap. All right. And I had the chocolate lab that was Pete McLaughlin's dog. Again, Pete McLaughlin, God rest his soul, but I took over his dog because I used to babysit that dog all the time. It was a little brown dog that was on the third floor of the firehouse that chewed everything to death.
Right.
So then I would babysit, take that dog home. And I said, Pete, you're ruining this dog. This is a lab. You need this. They need people. They need stuff. So one day he came to me and he said, I'm going to Ireland for a month. So just take the dog. And I took the dog and became, a beloved family pet. So the chocolate lab would lay right on the floor next to my son's crib. I go outside and my MO was I'd start the lawnmower and I'd do up, down, shut the lawnmower off, run in, check on the baby. All right. That was it. And that's how I would cut the lawn. I would be gone maybe 2 minutes. I'd come in and I'd check on the baby. So I did that. I start the lawnmower up and I go like 10 feet with the lawnmower and I hear somebody calling my name. I'm looking around, nobody's there. And for some reason, I said, I got to go in and check on Caleb. I go in, Caleb was crawling over. He was awake. The dog was barking. He was crawling over the crib to get out. And his t-shirt was like caught on the crib. I'm like, holy crap. Where did that voice come from? All right, whatever. 2 nights later, I'm back working a night shift in the firehouse. So I'm at 17. So we turned the corner. And it was, the typical, we know we're going to work, and the one Bronx dispatches, all right, 17 to 60, all indications you're going to work. We turn the corner, everybody's in the street and stuff like that. I had the irons, and his name just left my head. He didn't stay with us long, but the donkey Irish kid that came as a probie.
Oh,
Heavy brogue. He lasted with us maybe a year and a half. He wasn't for 143rd Street. But anyway, Gillen, Sean, something or other.
Yeah.
You know who I mean? Sort of balding head and stuff like that. But anyway, he had the can. And I think Boss Grady was the boss. So we're going in and it's roaring. It's roaring. Cumberland had the nozzle in 60. So I start going. I'm dragging this kid along with me. And Grady says, I'm going to take a look to the left. And I'm going. And it's getting hotter and hotter and hotter. And I'm going. And I hear the line coming. I know they're coming. I'm looking for this kid with the can. Now he's gone, right? So I'm searching a little bit. And as I'm searching, how I used to search, I'd go side to side, stuff like that. And I'd leave the Halligan in front of me to let me know how far I go.
Right.
Side to side, wall to wall. I'm going. And again, no mask. My face is right to the floor. I got the bandana on. Right. I'm going a little bit further. Right. I'm calling. Now it's getting hot. Now my ears are burning. The old helmet was long before bunker gear. I have one flap down, one flap up because that's how we were taught, and I'm going a little bit further. I'm calling for Cumberland. I said, Gino, it's freaking roaring. It's over our heads. When you get water, hit the ceiling, let me know, and I'll back out. I don't hear anything from Gino, right? I go a little bit further. I go to turn the corner into the last room to the left. I never forget it. As I turn the corner, it spanked down right to the floor. And all I see is glow. Everything's glow on the floor. It's just glowing. Now I'm trying to see if I see a silhouette, somebody on the floor, stuff like that. I'm trying to find a bed. Of course, the reports of people trapped and stuff. I hear people clunking behind me and stuff like that. But I hear my name. I hear Bill very distinctly. I hear Bill.
Yep.
I turn. I said, Gene, over here. Bill. I look back. Gene's not there. I said, Gene, over here. Make the turn. And then the third time, it was very, very loud. And it was very, very distinctively my father's voice. My father very rarely raised his voice. Bill! I turned and the room just flashed over, tumbled me down the hallway. Cumberland like stopped me from rolling down the hallway. He goes, "Holy shit!" And he opened up the line. He says, "We might need 2 lines to get this." I think 41 brought a second line in. They started hitting 2. They go back. So now there's water on the fire and stuff. Like, we crawled back. My Halligan was right there.
Huh.
I had my, my construction gloves on. I touched my Halligan. I had to drop it. It was so hot. And it's in water. That's how hot it was.
Yeah.
For me, there was no doubt in my mind. And that was the only 2 times that it had happened.
Yeah.
That if people are going to listen to this, they're going to look at this and say, "I'm absolutely freaking crazy. Larsen, you're drinking again," all sorts of stuff like that.
No.
I'm telling you, it was my father's voice both times, with my son in his crib a week before and this night 3 times. And that's the only 2 times I've ever heard. I haven't heard it since he passed away in August of '94. All right. I'm 66 years of age right now. I believe it in every fiber of my body. Would I have been killed? Who knows? I would have been burnt pretty bad.
Yeah.
All right. And of course, it was before bunker gear. My ears were burning already. My knees were burning. And I knew it was hot, but we had reports of people trapping. That's what we did. And like I said, when I got back in there, that Halligan was in water and I couldn't touch it. It was so hot.
Yeah. So that's,
people want to believe what they want to believe, but that's
that's
how it went down. And I told you that story.
I know.
And that's,
I get chills when I hear that.
You had three of the best nozzlemen in 60 at that time. You had Gene Cumberland, who was super, Johnson and Steele. What more do you want? You could fight your way with a booster line to hell with those 3 guys.
Oh yeah.
And never worry about them. It's like having, Joe Holland on the line or Brucey Flynn with an 83 engine. You don't care that half the box could be on fire, but if they said they got it, you went to the floor above. They got it. It would have, you look up nozzleman in the dictionary and their pictures are in the dictionary. So I had no worry, but but that's what happened.
I believe it. And that's kind of what the theme of this whole thing is going to be going forward, is that invisible hand, because I firmly believe that, there's a higher power, and sometimes we get in over our heads, and, we get that invisible hand to help us out. And Billy, you and I, we've been through so much together, you know what I mean? And, it's just, we're still here to talk about it, and I'm just grateful that, I'll tell you real quick. I mean, just me going to 17 truck is just fate. You know what I mean? It's just everything, me meeting you and everybody over the years. So as usual, Billy, we could talk all night, but